There we go. We are recording. Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie Rennick, and I'm the Central Zone Coordinator. That's my job. And this, to my lovely lady to the left, is Carissa Ferguson. Carissa, want to tell us what you do here at Chinook's Edge?
I'm working with Jan as part of the enhanced team. So I see lots of our older kids and AAC users.
So Carissa, meet Jackie, or Carissa, meet Jenny. Jenny, meet Carissa. Like, we can hear through yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear him?
She'll be coming out with me.
Can you hear Jan okay, guys?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. And who is there with you guys? Jenny, who's with you today?
Okay, sorry, I just typed it in the thing.
Oh, sorry.
April Faulkner, Jamie D. Marshall, and myself. So we've got it casting up onto a big screen. So
Perfect.
we're looking sideways. So.
Okay, great. I'm just trying to find my screen. Hang on here. Too many clicks open. Too many open.
Tabs.
I do. It's a occupational hazard. Okay, and then Dorothy, where are you coming to us from today?
I'm in Innisfail. I
Oh,
seen you today at school.
yes, you did. How is it going?
Good.
Good. So we assume with you guys all being here that you're either working with or potentially will be working with students who use AAC. So I'm going to present my slides today. I actually think it'll be a quick meeting today because we kind of want to gain some information from you also as to what you're looking for over the course of the year. They're just working on the volume, maybe, yes? Yep. Okay. So I just got to find, of course, when I closed all the tabs, I, of course, closed the one most recently needed because it's like I've never done this before in my life. There we go. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to present my slides. You guys let me know if you can see it. No, we don't want that. Okay.
I think it's this one.
Thank you. It's like I said, it's like I've never done it before. How do I get to that though?
I think it's just taking a little while.
Yeah. Okay, there, you guys are able to see that? Oh yeah, it's really, my computer is acting a little yucky today, everybody, so I apologize. It's just spinning and spinning. So as we go through today, I would really love it if when you come across something or as you're thinking about the kids that you work with, if you have any very specific questions or thoughts or ideas that you'd like us to address over the next few months or next month, like I really need you to answer this next time you meet with us, please just jot it down or you can put it in the chat and we'll record it. And then at the end of the meeting today, we would love to also hear sort of your challenges, maybe take a couple minutes per person to just say, what are your challenges that you're facing right now? That even if we happen to be in your schools and or we can send you some resources right away, that's what we'd like to be able to do to help you as well. So our first, this is my favorite slide. My favorite saying for kids with AAC is see me, see my AAC, which is the idea that if I'm an AAC user, then if you see me, you should also see my device with me at all times for many reasons, basically access, opportunity, and to help all of those around the child learn to use it as well. And it can be very daunting, myself included, had an AAC user a few years ago and I had never seen a device in my life. So it can be very overwhelming and daunting, but the more that I played with it and the more that it was part of my day with her, and this also with the EAs, the better that it was for the student. So that's just my favorite saying, and I want you to think about it. And I have posters if you'd like to remind other staff members or yourselves to like, oh yeah, I got to have that. I'm happy to print those and send them to your school. Okay, so the alternative communication series that we have is basically alternative and augmentative and alternative communication systems that allow the person to communicate around them without speaking. So we know my prof called them not even nonverbal, but not mouth talkers. So they can talk, they're just not using their mouth. So there's other ways to talk. So if you're a mouth talker like us, things can come easy, but maybe you're not a mouth talker, but you might not be, nonverbal is a way to say I don't use my voice physically, but I actually have lots to say. So thinking about that, there are many types of AAC. The most common that we deal with as a coordinator, I see kids with AAC devices, but there's all sorts of other ones like button pushes, switches that Jan has helped us with to help with kids, and SLPs as well. Hey, you have lots of kids with switches. Eye gaze is another way to use AAC. I think we're going to focus a lot on our touch chat and ProLoquo kids, but just so you know, there are other options of AAC out there as well. And if you're having trouble accessing those, you can contact us too, and we can help. I feel like our series will be a combination of a little bit of learning, but mostly question and answer, because that's where the power is in having Carissa and Nicole and Jan with us, and other SLPs if we are able to hire them. Knock on wood, we love them. We want all SLPs, but just to have the people in the room that can answer the questions. I'm not the person, I'm just helping facilitate, but I can support them in that as well. So I want you to know that's the kind of the series process is a little bit of learning each time and then quite open for question and answer. So get your questions ready kind of each time. The Google Meet link that's there will always be the same. It will always be the same link to get to us. And you can sign up. It's kind of nice for me to have those numbers. So after today, I'm going to go in and just link to whoever signed up on the sign up sheet, which is just kind of at the bottom of the invite that you would have got. It says sign up here. That allows me to have a bit of data to say, you know what, we had 7 people that signed up that day and it's growing, etc. It allows us to say, yeah, we think this is a valuable tool. Okay, so the series planning. So basically today we're going to cover a little bit about why we communicate, the myths of AAC devices, and then the rest of the year we can think about starting with devices or kids that already came to you that use devices. Maybe they're ahead of you. That can happen. So how do we help support you? We have a new AAC curriculum that I'll talk about right near the end, how to model the device, and then your challenges and questions. So we'll add to that list as we go through the year. I didn't want to set out a big plan before we kind of knew where your needs were. So that's where we're going for that. So the Bill of Communication Rights, the Communication Bill of Rights is one of the first things that I learned this summer when I took my teaching students with significant disabilities, and it's kind of a universal thought across the board that we all have the right to communicate. So when you click on that, when I'll share the presentation with you, or we'll put it in the I'm not sure where we'll store it, but it'll be accessible to you for sure. I'll just send it to you, and then we'll store it probably in the inclusive drives of every school under professional development. But you can click on it and it will actually pull it right up of the areas that a student can be communicating. There's a link attached to it. So if you want it, you can open that at any time. I really like that it talks about the student having a right to have their own voice heard, and that everyone has the right to communicate and have a social life with other students and other people. So that's just one thing that kind of guides my learning and my teaching when we talk about using AAC, that it's really not about, well, do they get a device? Don't they get a device? It's can they communicate, and have we given them an access and opportunity for that? So the Communication Bill of Rights is something that's really important to remember, and it exists. There's also a Literacy Bill of Rights that I didn't know about until this summer as well, about the access to reading and the ability to allow students to access that as well. So I'll encourage you to have a look at that after today. And so we're going to jump into the reasons that we communicate. So use this information to support your planning. So when you're thinking about AAC goals, usually that's going to come from an SLP. It might come from a parent. It might come from the teacher. And we don't want you to ever feel like you have to bite off more than you can chew when it comes to the communication goals. So if you're looking for support, so in the North, if you have a student who's an AAC user, Nicole probably has already been building some goals for those students. If they are in the South or the Central Zone, we can work together to develop some goals around AAC with myself, with Carissa, or even with their previous goals that they were using before. So I just want to highlight some areas that maybe if you're unsure where we can focus, I can help you do that. So which of the communication functions is your AAC user already using? And which do you want to focus on or teach next? What words or messages can you model to teach these different reasons to communicate? So these are the ones we pulled out. So the first is social interaction. Can the student greet someone on a device? Can they be polite? Can they flirt or compliment? I don't know about the flirting. I don't know about that it depends. At a high school level, maybe it's a little different than for me. I had kids who were like, oh, she's pretty, and they might put that in the device, but maybe.
I've seen it on devices. It's
right,
acceptable.
for sure.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Because we all have that, right? The ability to compliment, to start a conversation, to set a topic. Maybe we want to talk about something specific, to direct a conversation, to change topic. Maybe we don't like what we're talking about. So an AAC device user might want to, can we talk about something else? I want to change topic. Asking a social question, sharing about themselves, wrap up conversation, tease, joke, negotiate. The ability to do that is some of the reasons that we can help our AAC users. The other one is just getting and giving information. Interestingly, I think that we often fall into asking our students with AAC to constantly give us information, almost like this is the task. Can you tell me what color that is? What letter is that? And so we're kind of putting them in this sense of performance for us instead of using the device to help them communicate. So it's all right to get and give information with your AAC device, but remember there's a whole other suite of communication needs and communication goals for the student. But when we're getting and giving information, maybe we're commenting on something, can they direct, express feelings, ask questions, discuss, giving their opinions. And we know the AAC user may only give opinion with no, no, yes, yes. And those are all emergent, they're all beginning stages, and that's okay. We're not asking for paragraphs right off the bat, that's for sure.
Yeah, to keep it fun, right?
Keep it fun.
So it's not just testing. So we can put in some of these fun social phrases.
Yeah.
And some of those things that other peers are saying too, that like, that's sus. Some of these ones that have come up that I'm just trying to figure out what they mean now.
We need our own dictionary.
Yeah.
Okay. To share news from home, to tell a story, to tell an imaginary story, to plan or to explain. But in the context, like Carissa said, any of these interactions can be, if they are engaging, the student will tend to be more willing to try if it's fun. And then realize when I get to touch that AAC device, I have a good time. That can be less of a testing or performance for them when they're having fun, like any of us, right? Sorry, how do I make this fun? There's a door prize at the end. Okay. Strategies to be better understood. So can you clarify? Did you want this or that? They might ask you to clarify, to say something different, to give a clue, to describe, to use the alphabet. So the alphabet is the first key, the first thing that we give our children to the ability to communicate. So we can help them to learn the alphabet with letter a day support, or letter a week, or wherever your student might be. If they're not already using words, if they're just starting with alphabet, that's a really great way to access their communication abilities as well. And then expressing their needs and wants. So can they make choices? Can they get attention? Can they request? Can they refuse and protest? And we want them to do those things. So even though it sounds, the first time I heard someone say, well, we want, I think it was Leslie who was like, well, we want to know if she can protest something. And I said, well, why would we want to do that? Because in my world as a teacher, it's like, no, you have to do what I do. But at the same time, all of my other students could say, this is lame, I don't want to, but that student didn't have the ability. And so then you sort of put those two together and say, oh no, I want her to know how to protest. Because in the long, grand scheme of things, if a student is in a situation where they must protest, we want them to have that ability with their voice to do so. Okay, so anything there, ladies and gents, you want to add or think about in terms of communication? Everybody's good.
I guess just thinking, like you already said this, but again, not testing, not just for academic purposes, like to remember the social piece too. Because I definitely got stuck in this at the beginning of my career too, of like, I want it to be academic. I want them to answer questions. And then all of a sudden the device becomes work and it becomes school. So then when these kids see these devices, they're thinking, oh, school, work, ugh. So I just really want to emphasize that. Let's keep it social and fun and funny. So just remembering that too. It can be academic as well, but we really want to emphasize that social importance too.
Okay. Next. So these are all the other possible ways that AAC users need access to colorful language. So we want to know, can they do all these things? And this is maybe more of a visual to the extensive list, boring list I just gave you, but to have something like this as a reminder to yourself to put in your binder if you're working with a student or up in your rooms to say, okay, wait a minute, what else could we do with this today? And help them understand that there's multiple ways to use their communication, just as there is for us. We take so much of it for granted for ourselves. So yeah, that's a really cool little poster, which I'll attach as well. Okay, and then aided language. So the premise of aided language input is the AAC users acquire language the same way that typical speakers learn language, through natural interaction and language-rich environment. So if spoken language, for some of us, spoken language goes in and spoken language comes out. For others, spoken language goes in, but I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to speak out loud, so I'm going to need some help with that. But if we have aided language and spoken language together, then we can have aided language and spoken language output together. So the idea is using the combination of both, using your words. So you wouldn't speak with a child who has AAC just using their AAC. You would use your words as a spoken language model to help support them. And then they can have both. And it's interesting, my student who I worked with had very little words and wouldn't speak very often. And after about a year of intense work with her person and using it as much as possible, she kind of faded away from using it because she was using 6-word sentences. So the AAC actually led her to be more comfortable speaking. And then one day, I don't even know why I did it. It's not something I would ever say to a kid, but she came into my room and she just said one word, bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. And I said, can you use all the words? That's all I said. And I don't know, at first what I said, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have asked that. This is kind of demanding. And she said, Mrs. Rennick, bubbles play, please. And I was like, oh my goodness, she just told me everything in a sentence. So that idea of it being almost a gateway to language is actually one of the myths I want to talk about today as well. Okay, next slide. So myths and truths. So please step in here if you sort of say, yeah, this is true, and here's what we've seen before. And I know I didn't tell Nicole she had to speak today, so she may think, but she does have a really great story about a teacher or a maybe an EA who helped this kid and go, oh, the persistence of the myth, right? So myths and truths. So the myth is that AAC is the last resort. So educators or families may believe that an AAC is the last resort for their nonverbal children and should only be used if there's no hope of speech ever developing. So they're saying, well, I guess they'll never talk, so here's the device. And the AAC, the truth is, it usually helps develop expressive and receptive language skills. Waiting to use AAC or believing this myth, in fact, may mean that the student has no means of communication for a long time. This may result in challenging behaviors, frustration, limitations, or lack of access and opportunity to curriculum, literacy, and life skills. So my student didn't start on AAC until grade 9. And I sort of always wondered if there had been intervention. She wasn't in our school division, but if there had been a device used prior to, how far could she have come in that time? So some of you will feel, if you're dealing with elementary level or even middle school, high school kids that haven't had it very long, it may feel like they're not going to move very fast. And think about that being okay, that the longer they have time with it, the better off that they'll be. The myth that anything else on that last myth? Okay.
Like a second language.
It is
Yeah.
learning a second language or an additional language as we're learning.
Yes.
Additional
Multiple
language. A child, so the myth, a child who has some verbal skills should not use AAC. It's only for people who are nonverbal. It is frequently believed that a child would lose or stop developing their verbal skills if they were to use AAC. And the truth is, developing speech and using AAC are not mutually exclusive. A child who is unable to meet all of their communication needs may still require a system to augment their speech. Using AAC will not reduce or slow down speech development, so it won't stop them from learning the language. That's sort of a big one. AAC can actually support that speech development, and it can be used with anyone who needs communication support. So non-speaking, unreliable, limited speech. It can be used for a lot of different types of students. Okay. Hi, Nicole. Thanks for joining us.
And I think I like to think about, so these kids that are using maybe one word or they're really hard to understand, by giving them this AAC piece, we're actually encouraging them to learn some grammatical markers, right? Here's a kiddo that can't say S, for example, but then we can still teach them plurals. They can still show us that they know plurals, even if they don't have that S sound. They can use that on their device. And they can learn how to combine words too. So we're not depriving them of that grammar that they might be capable of, just that their speech is getting in the way of that.
And another example is some of our kiddos with ASD might be verbal most of the time, but when they're dysregulated or nervous or having a hard day, speech might be really hard for them. So having access to something alternative can actually help them in those situations as well.
Same with our medically fragile guys too, or cerebral palsy. Like if I don't have that breath support, I'm too tired, here's my backup.
And it doesn't have to be a high-tech device. It can be a visual. It can be, I can touch something, or my teacher can be holding several laminated cards that are my go-tos, right? That I can use when I can to help communicate. Okay, the next myth is there are prerequisite skills that a person needs to demonstrate before they can use AAC. So this outlook tends to limit the type of supports provided and limit language development. A person does not need to be a certain age, show joint attention, pointing, language development, or anything to begin AAC. And this is what I think is, if I'm asked to use an AAC device with a child for the first time, I have no prerequisites, right? Like I have no knowledge prior to, and I have to kind of fumble along with the child. So if you're in a situation where it's the first time for you, the first time for the student, that's awesome. And that's totally okay. And the worse it is, the better, because you're both going to learn together and you can say, oh, I made a mistake. Let's go back and model that that's okay to make those mistakes. So that's, there is no prerequisite. We can start when we feel that it's going to work or we want to try it. And sometimes it is a trial, right? And if the student throws the AAC across the room, maybe they're not quite ready. Maybe there's some other things we can try first.
We need a better case.
Yeah.
Better case. We need a better, stronger, tough book case. Okay, and then I think there's one, is there one more myth? Yeah. If AAC doesn't work right away, it's because it doesn't work for the student. So a student may need an extensive and consistent exposure to AAC and adult modeling before they begin to use it spontaneously. Be persistent, be an advocate and voice for the student, and don't give up. So I'm going to pass it to Nicole because she has an actual moment.
So when I started with the division 4 years ago, I had a student come into kindergarten. He had a few signs that he knew. He didn't speak any words, some vocalizations. And we started with a paper core board. So just a paper version of like the home screen on Touch Chat. And the school kind of got some pushback from them. Like, why would we do this? He knows some signs. Why aren't we going to push forward with the signs? And I just talked them through it every time. We explained. We went through the years. He's now in grade 3. And his EA, who was with him in kindergarten, is back with him this year. And she came to me and she said, I cannot believe he actually said want orange on the device today. And now that might not seem like a huge deal, but from where we started to this child now in grade 3 who can ask for what he wants and he can say no, and he picks up the device on his own and chooses to ask for things on it is a huge, huge, huge win. And his team is now seeing that it took 4 years, but we're here. And now they've been able to see that modeling and that persistence and that not testing really paid off for them.
Thank you, Nicole. Sorry, I'm just moving so we can get a little bit of Yan in the picture there. There we go. Okay. All right. So the last slide that I have for today is, so it's kind of taking us in that 15-minute zone, is an AAC resources for staff. So I did send this to a couple of you, may already have it. I'll just see if I can. I'm going to exit the slideshow and actually bring that one up. So I'll just bring up the resources. Okay, present. All right, so this, you can certainly click on it once I've shared it with you too, but I'll just give it a look. It takes just a second to load. So you'll see that this is a working document. So I've given most people access to view. If you do come across other things as you're learning or doing your own research and you find something like, hey, I think this would be great for the AAC resource site, just send me an email with the link and I can add it, or Tanis or Greg. We all have access, and I think Carissa, Nicole, you guys should all have access to it as well. So if you wanted to add things to it, you can. What I like about it is it has in it the essential components for teaching students with complex communication needs. What are you to think about for programming? So if you're the teacher, these are some good things to have a peek at in terms of the Alberta Learning has come up with the essential components. So maybe you're not going to get to everything, but here's the things you want to make sure. It's things like having the family involved, making sure that there's access to the device. And then if you go through it, there's there's AAC Language Lab, Practical AAC, free AAC resources. And then there's also professional learning. So there's a full webinar series from Kathy Howry, who is an AAC specialist and low incident specialist for Alberta Learning, but also in the province. She's very well known for her work. There's a webinar on students with complex needs, do's and don'ts of modeling. So all of these are just YouTube or free professional learning that you can access at any time for yourself. So if you're at home or you've got someone that you usually support, 3 kids are sick that day, this might be a good time to sit down with this and, zip through some of them if you have time in the actual building. Or, speaking to admin and say, hey, there's a series of webinars I'd really like to look in on. I think every school does it differently. So some admin would say, yep, there's a little extra budget for some PD. Some will say, no, it'll have to be on your own time. But that'll be sort of up to your team. But I wanted to give you as many resources as I possibly had. So I'll make sure that those get shared out to you as well. Okay, so now I would just love to open it up to kind of your own questions. And I see Tanis is there too. Hi, Tanis. I didn't even see you before. Thanks for joining us. And so if you have any sort of burning questions or challenges that you're facing right now, I've got my notepad ready to go, and we'll let Nicole and Carissa and Jan answer if they can, and if not, they can certainly say, we'll get back to you or send Jackie your way, just in terms of the question piece today. So I will just pop to Dorothy. You're at the very top of my list. Do you have any specific questions or challenges right now that you're thinking of, or who you're working with?
I am not working with a student, but my granddaughter is in grade 1 and she has a machine.
Oh, cool.
So I just want more information. And if I work with a student to
Yeah. How old is your granddaughter?
6, grade 1.
Grade 1. And she's just started with the AAC?
And no, she had it last year.
Okay,
She's
cool.
actually good with it already. So
Oh, nice. You know who this is.
Just met her this
Oh,
morning.
nice.
She's a
Excellent.
cutie.
Okay. Great. So I'm glad that you're here. That's awesome. We'll be able to give you lots of support and advice to help.
great.
Can I ask what language? What is she like? What is she speaking? Which program?
Touch chat.
Touch
Touch
Okay.
chat?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. How about Jenny, your team there? Do you guys have any questions? Jenny, Jamie D? Hi.
Okay, turning on our microphone. Hang on.
Yeah, no problem.
We're just talking about that idea of the playing and practicing part of it, because we still have a student that we know, like, and we feel like he's resistant to it.
Yeah.
And so we keep going back to, like, is he tapped out and done? Or now that we know better, is there a better way to practice first? Because we're like, I'm curious if the expectation was he needed to know how to use it as a communication device and he doesn't want to use it as a communication device, but did he ever have like the prep and games and activities and all of that stuff first before there was an expectation of it being his tool? So we're doing things a little bit differently with Dakota coming in, which we still don't have enough resources. We just, like, any games, activities, all of that stuff, we would take at any point. But we just don't know if we should pull him in and go back to stage one. And it's the constant. We just need to keep revisiting that
Yeah.
as well. But what do you do first before you expect them to use it effectively as a communication device? What's the prerequisites, I guess?
And I guess just knowing that too, like there are no prerequisites. So it's not like he has to show us that or pass some kind of test to be able like, oh, now you're not an emergent communicator, you're this communicator. But I think knowing that piece, I get this question a lot where they're not using their device functionally or they're not using their device at all. And my first question is always, how much are you using their device? How much are you modeling on it? Because that kind of seems to be right. These students need to see other people using AAC to learn AAC, especially when I look at, oh, this student has only had a device for a year.
Mhm.
So I'm actually equating them to, okay, well, what would I expect a 1-year-old who's learning spoken English? Well, I expect them to maybe use one word sometimes or just beginning to use one word. So I kind of liken it to that too, that this student might have only had 6 months of really good, what we would call aided language stimulation, but essentially 6 months of someone else modeling the device for them. So we would never expect a 6-month-old baby to be using it consistently and functionally. So I would like to always keep that in the back of my mind. I don't know if that helps, kind of answers your question, kind of not, but do you guys have
I think it would be
to add?
like the student we're talking about that's very resistant is with Down syndrome. He came to the high school in grade 9 with it. He has used it at home with mom. But I think they stopped now as much. But there was a few problems involved. Like he did know how to use it, and we tried very, very, very hard. But I think he was very aware of students around him and wanting to fit in, so he did not want to carry it with him. Hated it, resisted it all, and we were all a bit mean, forcing him to like. So maybe for like JVD said, maybe it wasn't fun enough. I don't know. But then we switched to a phone, like we've got on his phone, but it's too tiny.
Oh,
He
awesome.
doesn't want to use it.
Too tiny.
He uses it at all costs. He does not like it. Like I said,
That's such a good idea, though.
Yeah.
If he's feeling
Mhm.
like different to use a phone, that's brilliant.
Have you tried having peers use his device to talk to
Well,
him?
we've got a new student, like she's saying, the girl who has one, and we're talking about using it with a game, making it competitive, and trying that, and seeing how that goes.
And it's hard to know, but I do find some of my students, this is something that I did a lot early on in my career that looking back, I'm just kicking myself, but is really pushing that student to use it. Like, what color is Pete's shoes? What color is Pete's shoes? Blue, like really, really pushing them. So I wonder sometimes too if that happened to some of these kids early in their AAC journey. And now when they see the device, they're like, school, work, not fun, right? And that's when I will start to try and put in some of those social phrases that other kids are using, or like something fun. I do, and for some reason that's the only phrase I can think of right now, but that's sus. Anything else that those other peers are using that they can use to be funny, and then you're taking a big step back of like, you know what? We're not going to use the device to test. We're not going to use it as a real big curriculum piece for right now. We're going to focus on that fun, funny, depending on the student, depending on what's motivating for them. But if they're kind of goofy, maybe we can push that a little bit before we push that academics.
And you haven't met him yet, but he's on your list.
I think maybe for me, just an
We go to see
overall-
him.
But is that
can't wait
something
for you
you
to
could
meet him.
see working for him, or do you feel like
Well, we got a little bit more, but like just a few one words based if you're talking his favorite subjects, but he still wants to put it away and he'll still try and always vocalize. And I see it as a great tool for this particular student as error correction, because there are some things that he can't say, but he's
right?
not.
So it's more
fully
like a
intelligible.
backup than his whole.
Well, no, it is
number
more
one.
his whole,
Okay.
but it's a lot of work. So I'm excited for you to see him.
It'll be good to see how these after school sessions go, plus our AAC training. Because I feel like the same way teachers and academic coaches need to learn the progressions of how to teach a student to read, we need to learn these progressions, because like when you're speaking about a baby, well, I know how to speak in single words to help a baby learn language. I know how to pair that. That's intuitive. But learning how to teach a kid to read, I've had to learn how to do that. And this isn't intuitive for any of us. It isn't intuitive. Like, I don't know where the baselines are. I don't know, like when you even use the term emergent AAC reader. Well, what's the, like, does that align with an emergent reader? And is that like, so I need the scaffolding, right? So I'm sure that that's what you guys have in place, but right now I feel like we're really bad first year teachers picking activities for the heck of it, where now that I'm a solid teacher, I know that you don't do that. You scaffold your teaching and you know what needs to be there first before you go to the next level. And I feel like we don't really know that. And of course, Jan, like, because both the students we're talking about, I don't know if we can go here if we don't have this, but then if we have this and we have this and there's no interest here, then at least we would feel like, okay, maybe we are done. But then with our other student, to make sure that we know the steps, right? I just feel like we can't work from our guts with this as much as we do in so many other areas of our lives, because we got enough training at some point that our guts now work. But this one, so I'm sure you guys have that in, some big master plan somewhere. But I feel like we're just like picking things instead of, a logical sequencing of pieces, if that's helpful.
So I think you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of the curriculum for sure. We worked with the SLPs and Leslie and Jan near the end of the year last year and kind of throughout the year to develop an AAC curriculum, and not a curriculum to like, we'll assess you on it, but more sort of the areas of here's where an emergent AAC user will be. Emergent just meaning just learning. That's all that means. Conventional means I can use it fluently, right? So we have a curriculum, we have those standards, so that'll be part of our AAC training to go through what we're looking for. But what I'm hearing here in terms of beginning, and the ladies can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that play is our starting point here with those students, both to just have a really good time with it and make it a game and make it fun. And Tanis wrote on the chat, an opportunity to play a game where every student is using a device. It does need to be a touch chat, but whatever game it is, no one can talk, and so that could mean that the students who can use visuals, great. Students who can sign, cool, like whatever works. So anything you can do that is, and then the interest level. So find the things that they're super interested in and work on that. But I think the play and the gamification of it right now might be the place to start, so that they attach the memory of play with using the device. That could be really, really fun, actually. We want to do the AAC Olympics at some point. That's my goal. My dream is an AAC Olympics for all of the kids in the zone to come together and have a good day using AAC all together. So I got to figure out how to make that happen. I need more money. We all need more money. Okay, so we're just about at 4:15. So that went flying by. I hope it was helpful. What I would love for you, Tanis, I see you there just like praying, is like praying that it's over. I'm not sure. Okay. I want to say thank you for showing up today, and please pass on this information to anyone else you know. This will be recorded, and so will every consecutive session. I've put the sharing of these documents into the chat. One's taking a little longer than the other, but I will share them with you guys also. And then if you have questions between now and the next session, just send them my way, and I will make sure that I can find out an answer or get it to the people who can help you. Nicole, I saw that you're on there, but you're not on your camera. Is there any question you have before we sneak away?
No, I don't have a student this year, but just in case, right? I like to keep it in the back of my brain, just say, oh, I remember taking that, and just being able to, if it ever comes up, just I can figure this out, right?
Well, and I also think, Nicole, in a position where you're an EA walking the buildings of a school, if you see a kid with a device, you as anyone can interact, right? From custodian all the way to the principal. Everybody can interact with a student who has AAC if you've got some information to not be scared of it.
Exactly. And that's what I don't want to be, is seeing the device and just kind of like, oh no, I don't know what to do. And then, hey, I know, let's just figure it out. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. That's great. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Please send your questions. If you want us to cover something specific, send it right away and we'll work it into next time. Okay. Thanks, my team. Thanks for showing up today. Appreciate it. Okay. Have a great night, everybody.
CKFI book holds high for October 30th.
Yeah, perfect. Is that who that was?
Yeah.
That's Jamie D.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got 2 students there, and it looks like